Hello to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of all that I've learned from Tony Robbins over the years. It's afternoon. I didn't get a chance to do my vlog in the morning. I was in the city, had to go to a meeting, a conference in fact, and I was running just a tad late. So I thought, rather than just rush it in the morning, what I was better off doing was to just delay it and to deliver this episode in the afternoon rather than do it in the morning. So here we go. For those who are not aware, what I'm planning on doing is doing a 365 episode series on all that I've ever learned from the great man, the big man, Tony Robbins. I recently attended one of his sellout seminars here in Sydney called UPW, which means Unleash the Power Within, and it's a seminar which goes for 4 days and 4 nights, about 50 hours in total, and is a real challenging life experience, and for many people it's transformational. And you'll hear the same people regardless of which year you go to or which version you go to. It was the same in 94 and 95 when I went there, and this year it was just as powerful, with about 9,000 participants from about 69, 70 countries throughout the world. So it was absolutely spectacular. It was really challenging, as I said, and I learnt a lot and loved every moment of it, and really recommend it, even though Tony Robbins did announce this year that this will be the last UPW that he will be hosting here in Australia. But we'll see what happens in the future. So what I plan to do is just to pick out morsels from the different books on Tony Robbins that I've read. I remember reading and studying intently Unlimited Power, his first book, and Awaken the Giant Within, so much so that I took notes, I highlighted it, and I studied it as a life text and got a lot out of it. I also have listened to his tape series, Power Talk, where he talks and he interviews people who are leaders in their field and shares the teachings and the very valuable learnings from those people as well. So I've got 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 UPWs spanning 30 years almost, as well as the books that I've read, the tapes that I've listened to, and YouTube channel episodes that I've also been able to tap into. And what I would love to do is to put together this 365 video episode series just to capture all of the learnings over the years. One of the things that Tony Robbins talked about at UPW this time round was the power of time, and that time is a human construct. There's no such thing as time. Time is something that humans have come up with, because when you look at things from God's time, there is no past, present or future. It is all an eternal now. So the thing that he talked about was that people have different perceptions of time, and the way he put it was he asked the question, write down, just think about and write down what your definition is of long time and short time. There was a fish that just popped out of the water, so he was having a good time. So Anthony Robbins asked the question, what is the difference, or what do you perceive as being long time and short time? And he went round the audience and asked people a simple question. What is long time for you and what is short time? And he got many different answers. And what that suggested to all of us was that humans, that people, that cultures, in fact, families, men, women, children, all have a different perception on what time is, what long time is, what short time is. And you know, from a cultural perspective, there's a thing called Greek time, where we Greeks are always late, turning up to things. And I guess there's also Pacific Islander times, where things are done slower, and there is fast time. And Anthony Robbins says that people always tend to overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year. So they overestimate what they're capable of doing in 1 year, but they grossly underestimate what they can do in 10 years. Because we've all got a different definition, a different sense of time. And when you're having a good time, time seems to slow down. It just seems to stop for the moment, and you can reflect on it and you can enjoy it and savor it over and over again. And of course, when you've got nothing much to do and it's boring, time seems to take forever. But one thing that I'm noticing as I'm getting older is that time seems to be speeding up, accelerating at a very, very fast pace. So much so that you blink and it's Christmas. You blink again, it's Easter. And so on and so forth. Time just seems to fly. And where are we going here? I remember working as a commercial accountant for a number of major corporations. And one of my skill sets is to do costing and put together pricing for outsourcing projects. And the thing that I learned was that people generally underestimate how much effort is required to get something done, as well as the amount of skill that is required to do things. And for that reason, for that main reason, most projects seem to blow out in their costs because the estimates have been naively underdone. People haven't really sat and thought about what they need to do and how much they need to do in order to get a project done. And for that reason, a lot of projects, a lot of building projects as well, always seem to cost a lot more than what you first imagined. So we need to understand that sometimes we're caught up with this time trap where we can't really sense time is going. And Anthony Robbins warns everybody. I remember back in the 90s, 94, 95, he warned everybody. He says, be very, very careful, because if you don't become the master of the amount of time you have available to you, you're going to run out of time. And for most of us, it's later than what you really think. It's later in your life than what you think. And a lot of us fall into this trap where we dress, we behave, we think like young people. And that itself, is a bit of a trap, because you think you're much younger than what you are. So much so these days that you can see a grandmother, a mother, and a granddaughter in a photo on Facebook, and you can't tell the difference. You can't tell who's the mother, who's the grandmother, and who's the granddaughter, because everybody is or has morphed into each other. And these days, with augmentation and plastic surgery and the different surgeries that are available, people can trick others and trick themselves into thinking that they are much younger than what they truly are. And that in itself, as we said before, and as Tony Robbins reminds us, is a trap. But one thing that Anthony reminds us of is the importance of working hard, importance of working really, really hard in your life, is to make money, is to accumulate wealth. And the reason why you become as wealthy as you can or as rich as you can is that money that you're able to accumulate gives you options in life. He says that the difference between rich and poor is the rich get to and the poor have to. So by having more money, by having the funds available, you're basically buying yourself extra time to be able to spend with your children, with your friends, and doing the things that you love to do. But you need to be organised. Not everybody is organised in their lives, and even people with lots of money still get trapped in working long hours because they don't quite realise, they haven't quite figured out what they're doing and why they're doing it, and they just keep on doing the same thing over and over again. I remember years ago going to a seminar run by the St George Bank. My friend Bill Karagounis invited me to the seminar, and Paul Clitheroe was the speaker on the night. And the seminar was on superannuation and retirement. And Paul Clitheroe back then asked the audience a simple question, a very, very profound and simple question, which is as relevant today as what it will ever be for everybody. And he asked the question, and the question was, how much is enough? How much is enough for you? And he went round the audience there, and the answers that he got varied from people. And Paul Clitheroe said to everybody, along the lines of what Anthony Robbins is also teaching us, he says that we are all different in terms of what we want in our lives. We are all very, very different. And what is enough for me may not be enough for you. And he says for some people, enough is to retire and to live on the pension. For other people, enough is to retire and to live comfortably with, say, $50,000 net income a year. And for others, they need to travel the world, they need to buy a new car every couple of years, they need to spend money on going to different restaurants and getting on different cruises. So enough is different, but you need to understand what is your enough. Because once you understand what your enough is, then you've got a baseline and a benchmark that you can relate to and refer to and decide what the next step is. Many people haven't even asked themselves that question, how much is enough? And you see people, I've got friends of mine who are billionaires. I've got friends of mine who have got hundreds of millions of dollars, and they keep on working. They work just as hard now as what they've ever worked before. They're running around like chickens with their heads chopped off, and they just continue to do it year in, year out. They complain that they haven't got enough time, they complain about this, they complain about that. But at any point in time, they can sit back and live more comfortably than what most people could ever live in their lives, and yet they can't see it. They can't realize it because they're in a trap. They're caught in a cycle where they think that they're going to live forever, and they just can't stop being in control. Sometimes they just want to be significant, and they just want to keep on working so that they can maintain that significance and have that control and have people depend on them, when they could simply just hand over to their children or to somebody else to manage their affairs, and they can live a life where they can achieve their calling, whatever their calling is, or callings. But if you're busy, and the world is defined now of people being too busy. We're just busy, busy, busy all the time. Busy doing what? I remember when I was young and I was working at IBM, I was working at Optus, Telstra, you'd see people walking around frantically with pieces of paper in their hand, pretending they were busy. And it was a career. Now, there are certain people who could make and turn busyness into a career. They would create work for themselves. They would create work for others, which, when you sat and analysed it, didn't deliver all that much, but it was something that they did because society, our society, Western society, highly values busyness as opposed to output. No, what value is there being busy, doing things that have no eternal spiritual value? My spiritual father always reminds me that you need to be doing things that are going to have a return on your investment, a spiritual return on your investment. And this is where Tony Robbins continues to remind us that it's critical to be doing the things that are going to be that are going to make you feel fulfilled. You're going to look back over your life and be happy with what you've done because it's helped others. It's allowed you to take your skills, the gifts that you have, and to do something with it, rather than to fulfill your own selfish desires, to use it to help others to do more with their lives. And this is where having wealth, having money, buys you time to do the things that are important. But if you don't know what is important, then that in itself is a big problem that needs to be sorted out. And the earlier we sort these things out, the better off we are. And for that reason, we need coaches, we need mentors, we need people to inspire us to focus on the things that are important rather than the things that are urgent in our lives. Tony Robbins invites us to have a meaningful and an impactful life. And whatever you believe You need to practice. Otherwise, you won't feel alive. You need to be fulfilled, and the way you feel fulfilled is by doing the things that that allow you to express your particular calling. And this is where Tony Robbins shares with us his magnificent secret. And it's a secret that we've all known all along. It's nothing so special. It's covered in the Bible. It's one of Jesus' greatest teachings. Jesus was the greatest example of this. And the secret that Tony Robbins shares with his audience is that the secret to living is giving, and to give without expectation of receipt. Years ago, I read a fantastic book, and Tony Robbins, of course, has read this book, as have most people, especially those who are of my generation, the baby boomers. And it's a book entitled The Road Less Travelled, written by an author named Scott Peck. And in that book there, I remember being inspired by what I read, where he said that love is the act of sacrifice. Love is an action. It's not just a word, it's just not a thought, it's just not a feeling. It's an action where you give of yourself to somebody else who can't give to themselves. So giving without receiving. Some people call it unconditional love, because that is God's love. God gives his love without placing conditions on it. It's not an if or sort of activity. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. You just do it without expecting anything in return. And it's something that people do, parents do, grandparents do, family used to do. But as we get older and older, conditions start to come into the love formulas that we have, and it gets to the point where you get to the stage in your life where people expect something for something. Now, gone are the days where you would give of yourself to somebody else and just keep on giving without expecting anything in return and still be happy. We've got to challenge ourselves and ask ourselves, why has that happened? Why can't we simply express God's love? And God's love, as we said, is just to give. It's an act of sacrifice. Jesus was the personification of God's sacrifice, where God became man and sacrificed himself for the love of man. It's a powerful concept to be able to get to the point where you so love yourself, you're so fulfilled in yourself that you are outward looking as opposed to inward looking. You're selfless as opposed to selfish. You do things, you give, because it gives you enjoyment. You do the things that are God pleasing. And it's something that is hard to describe. Now, it's something that needs to come from within. You've got to be able to do it and want to do it. You can't force somebody to love. You can't force somebody to love selflessly. You can't force unconditional love. It's something that you either have or you haven't. And when you see people who have it, then it is beautiful. It is extremely beautiful to to see and to express and to feel. I think most people remember, I've lost my mother and my father, but a lot of people remember the unconditional love of their mothers and their fathers, but more so their mothers. It's just a natural thing, because a mother carries her child for 9 months, has a relationship, an intimate relationship with their child for a very long period, whereas a father is introduced at a later date. And as much as I am a father and a grandfather, I do understand and I do appreciate the fact that a father can't be a mother. A father can't come close to being a mother. And a good mother will always be much more powerful, much more of a positive influence than a good father, because they have a different relationship with their children. Their relationship is much more selfless, unconditional love in full expression. So what are we saying here? What we're saying is that we need to try and think about and to practice God's love wherever we can. And one of the key teachings of Tony Robbins is the importance of just being loving of everybody. Everybody deserves love. We deserve love. Our partners deserve love. Our children, our work peers, everybody we come into contact with deserve our respect and our unconditional love without expecting them to do anything. So getting back to what we were talking about yesterday, how important it is to fill the gaps. One of the key elements, and a reminder from Tony Robbins, is that we need to be gap fillers, and we need to shape our wheel of life, and to be in a position to change those gaps, to fill those gaps, to grow and develop, so that we can become better versions of ourselves, knowing very much that the world is changing and constantly changing. I was just thinking today and reflecting today, I was at a union delegates meeting, a national conference, and they said that we just need to keep on fighting for our rights, because every year that passes, the changes, the dramatic changes that we have in the economy, in the relationships between employers and employees, the shifts in technology and the industry, mean that if we don't continue to fight, then we're going to lose everything that we've got. And you need to fight not to get more, but just to maintain what you already got. Just think about that. The reason why we fight, the reason why we get up and every day is a struggle, is not so we can get more out of life, but it's just to maintain, where possible, our current standard of living. Because if you want to get more out of life, then you need to do more than just fight. You need to battle tremendously in order to make ground, because we're all swimming against the current. There's a current that we're always swimming against, and it's the current of time. So that's something that we need to hold dear to our heart, knowing that as the years pass, we just can't take our foot off the accelerator. We can't just start to chill and take it easy, because things will start falling apart. Our health will fall apart. Our relationships will fall apart. as I was mentioning to a friend of mine the other day, and as Anthony Robbins tells us all the time, you need to work hard to keep family and friends and yourself together. Because if you're not doing something positive on a daily basis, if you don't spend all your time trying to improve things, then you're going to lose through atrophy the things that you thought you had, the things you took for granted, because that's how things are, that's how life is. The tide gets stronger and stronger, and you don't know when it's going to accelerate, and when it's going to be going with you, and when it's going to be going against you. But we need to keep on fighting, we need to keep on working, we need to keep on closing the gaps, we need to keep on checking in to see if we're on track or off track, how close or how far are we from where we want to be, and just to keep on doing those little things that get us closer and closer and closing that gap. So I think I'll leave it there for now. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of all that I've learned from Anthony Robbins over the years. It's a different place. I'm down here by the Parramatta River. It's sunset. I'm just about to cross the road and go to church. I have fellowship every Tuesday, and I just love coming down here to the church and just sitting with the priest and half a dozen to a dozen other parishioners. And at the moment we're going through Romans and just going word by word, line by line, and just trying to interpret and understand the Word of God. So thank you once again, and I look forward to coming to you from a different place with a different message of empowerment, where we can live, learn and pass it on, where we can take the wonderful messages that Anthony Robbins has shared with millions of people. We can complement and supplement his messages with our life experiences, as well as interpretations and examples from other people who are leaders in their field, so that we can use this OPE, this other people's experience, to try and help us shape our worldview and to live the best life that we possibly can. Anyway, thank you very much. Wishing everybody all the very best, and I look forward to coming again from a different place with a different message of empowerment. And bye for now.